Little tunes, you know. Welcome to the show, LJ. How you doing, fam?
Good, bro. How about you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm trying to get like you, bro.
Bro, shit, I'm just out here, man. Already got the fucking army. Almost
I,
free.
who isn't? You only got like a few nutheads who like, want to be like, yes, this is my purpose. I
Nah,
need
bro,
this.
my girlfriend's staying here, bro. She fucking hates this shit. She only staying because it's free. That's the only reason she's
Yeah,
staying, bro.
money is economic
Yeah, she's
incentive.
like, I would leave, but like, this is like the best chance for me to do what I want to do with my life without having to go into debt. So I'm like, you know what? I got you, babe. But like, I can't do this shit no more. So I'm getting the fuck out.
I feel you. It's time to go full Maoist. Just
Uh,
um,
What's the word now?
cop. But what's the quote? It says savage the body, civilize the mind,
Make
savage
savage
the
the mind,
body.
civilized the mind.
Yes, I
That's the
love
quote.
that.
Yeah, I agree
Well,
with you,
I've
man. We
always
studied that in like
disliked the
school.
negative connotations of the word savage because, like, and I think black people have sort of reclaimed that word more than natives because, 21 Savage. I'm a
Oh
savage.
yeah,
Like,
definitely.
even,
Even in sports, like football, when I play football, man, savage is like a compliment. It's like the biggest compliment you get is when you call it a savage or like a
e-
dog or something like that.
exactly.
Which
Like,
ironically would be an insult for black folks back in the day. But like considering the way black people have kind of taken over sports in America, at least, like when someone's called like a dog or a savage, it's like a compliment now, which is really interesting to me. I find that funny. The
yeah,
way black
top
people are able to use
dog.
that language. It's
Really,
interesting.
black people have dominated. Like, let's get on our, I guess, our hotep, our comtep type
It's a
vibe.
hotel. I am a sodomist.
We have dominant Britain. Like, let them have one black person on the team, right? And then they
Lose his
lose.
shit.
That dude is
Mhm.
getting called so many different slurs.
Bro, I know so many racist motherfuckers who love the NFL, bro, and love black players. That shit is so motherfucking funny to me, bro. Like,
It's like the cognitive dissonance. It's like, yes, like let while they're doing good, yes, let them get political. Let them even say, I don't think I should be shot and somebody should get away with it. A simple
you're making
statement
millions of
that is
dollars a year. Stop complaining. I'm like, that doesn't mean they're not black, bro. So I was in class actually one day, and we were speaking about structural racism and systemic racism in America, and we were talking about NFL players protesting the anthem, whatever. And most of us don't really give a shit. Most of us are like, yeah, what the fuck, it's still right. And this one white kid goes, sir, Colonel, I don't understand why they're protesting because these guys make millions of dollars a year. Why are they oppressed? And I'm sitting there like, what the fuck? So I speak to him. Cadet so and so. You understand that when these guys are like off the field, they're just black people, right? Like that doesn't
perfect.
exclude them from being discriminated against. There was like a really good. There was a video, not good video, but there's a video that came out I think a year ago. It was a black man. He's a pretty famous musician. He's like an instrumentalist musician. I already know him, but he has a couple of Grammys, or whatever. And his son is being harassed by a white woman in public. And that kind of just shows like no matter your status as a black man, you're black first in America. And that's interesting
There
because
was a
American class and race use are pretty much tied in, right? And it's interesting how
some
even like
people
as
believe.
black people kind of ascended to the bourgeoisie class in America, we still socially don't have as many protections as a white man would even a white man in the lowest social standard, say Jay Z.
100%, 100%. I was just talking to as a matter of fact, I think I touched into that on my first like little intro. It's a 27-minute video. But I was talking about how class, like intersectionality, feminism, racism, capitalism, all your isms, all combined into one fat clusterfuck.
Exactly.
You see, being black in America, I made a TikTok video on this actually. Being black in America, being black anywhere really is inherently revolutionary. You have a target on your back, no matter how you think you can get away from the stranglehold of capitalism and of racism. You have so many people within America, so many minorities who, there's only one real other. Yes, you have plenty of minorities that are hated against, none as many as black people. It's not a oppression Olympics. It's the simple truth. No race has gone through what we have gone through on a global scale. No, like even though you have indigenous black Arabs, indigenous black Chinese, indigenous, like you have dark skinned people. When I say black, I'm not talking about necessarily from Africa or, even though all humans come from Africa, that's a whole different topic. But if I'm talking about like sub-Saharan African, 100%, as long as you have my skin complexion, typically that is where is like a no-go.
Colorism
No
in
matter
general is
which
just
country
like
you go to,
exactly.
especially the ones who
Even the caste
like
system,
smell like
in Indian caste system, they have like the dark skin at the very bottom of the caste system used to be. And like, even then, like even the Indian independence movement with Gandhi was racist towards darker skinned people himself.
Gandhi. Oh, let's.
Bro, when I learned about Gandhi, man, that shit ruined my life because I was like, damn, bro, this man is not pure. Because this man,
Yeah,
this man
he's
was
talked about like he's the Indian MLK. That's the craziest part,
no,
bro.
it's because he's from South Africa, so like he saw that system, right? And
Oh,
at
I
the
didn't
end
know
of the
Gandhi
season,
was from. I thought he was native,
he's South African. He's a South African.
Indian.
No, he's South African.
Well,
So
maybe I think that's
he's
probably
he's
where
still
he
a
got
high
his views
African.
from.
Yeah,
You guys
definitely.
got to
Still a high.
realize that most and I heard a black woman who said this, and she was very correct when she said it, and I resonated with her when she said it. Most black men don't want to be liberated from capitalism and oppression. What they
They
want
want
to
to change
do
places
is
with the white man.
basically be the white man. They
Exactly. I
want
had
to.
this conversation like a couple months ago with one of another black cadet I know. She was talking about it. She was talking about MLK and how a lot of times MLK seemed as if he wasn't trying to liberate, at least like before he became a socialist, at least he wasn't really focused on liberation and rather replacing. So rather instead of getting rid of the system that black people have to operate in, we change the role of black people. And that's actually a mindset I used to have. Actually, I used to believe that black capitalism was the way to do so, that we can make capitalism work for the black community.
A lot
Only
of
when I
people
realized
believe
that
that.
capitalism was intended to bring us down, that as long as like we feed into the system socially or economically, it's not going to help us.
Most people don't realize that we no other race except for the black race. And you're inducted into the black race if you have dark skin. Somalians have this problem when they immigrate over. I'm not black. I'm Somali. Like
Oh my god,
I am not. And then I hear like all the dysphoria
the whole
wars
Dominican
and
thing. I'm not black and Dominican. That should be.
now that's just brain dead. Like somebody be like, I'm not black. I'm Dominican. Like, excuse me.
Bro,
Negroes
you
will
and the
be
Haitians
darker
are the same.
than me saying that they ain't black, and I'm just like, please. I'm tired of people acting like that we haven't built this country from the ground up. I had a conversation with a former Native comrade, and he was like, "Oh, black people have to fall in love with Africa," and like he was talking about indigenous sovereignty, and I was like, I fully support the land back movement. I fully support communism and socialism arising within the United States and smashing capitalism. But you can't ignore the last 400 years and just expect like nothing of it. We could have
Exactly. Like
arrangements like the U.S. government had with natives, but better, like where it's like, okay, black people have their own, if they are the dominant, if they're the most populous within areas, because many people don't know. During the early 1900s to 1930s period, Stalin, Trotsky, and Lenin all supported there being a separate black state. So this was when folks thought the revolution was going to spread and burn through the world. And these communists in Russia, they banned the CPUSA from like organizing any types of racism. Like they said, all black members must be treated the same. They said there's to be no racism in the party, and there was this black communist. I think his name was Lewis Ham. I have to look it up, but he wrote the book Hammers and Holes, and it detailed how Stalin himself said that like he was going to send soldiers over to the United States if black sharecroppers like kept on getting attacked. Like this was during the early days of the second / third iteration of the KKK, and where sharecroppers were basically going through neo-slavery. It was slavery, like essentially, it was slavery.
Yeah, I remember. My family comes from a line of sharecroppers. Actually, my great grandmama was daughter of sharecropper. So, and wasn't too long ago. I hate when people say it was pretty long ago. I've had conversations with roommates before, and like it was long ago. I'm like, bro, my grandma remembers when MLK was on TV, bro, and she's still alive and kicking. So like, it wasn't that long ago. It's just interesting.
That long ago, I got stopped by like 10 different cops and I was just landscaping. So, like, I gotten and be like, folks will say, "Well, I gotten stopped by cops because I have tattoos, and I look like a suspicious fellow." No, it's not the same. A black person could be in a clean
conversation. Like, you're not scared you're gonna get fucking shot and turn into a hashtag. That's the thing.
Or be put on a T-shirt.
The white thing is like, oh shit, it's a cop, whatever. When I get stopped by a cop, I'm like, fuck. Where's my I'm pissed out as fuck. Where's my military ID? So they know I'm on their side. They don't fucking shoot me. That's my first fucking thought when I get stopped by a cop. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And even then, with that military ID, like they still see you as black. And there's there's mad racism throughout the military. It's more specific in certain branches. I think is it the Air Force and the Marines who are like?
No, it's worse. It's the worst in the Army. The Army is the worst.
Ground forces, yeah.
The Army is the worst branch for fucking everything. Not even on cap, bro. Anyway, but like there's this video about this black lieutenant in uniform getting stopped at a gas station by a bunch of cops, and they almost shot the motherfucker in uniform. You know, and that's.
And you said they shot at him, or
they didn't shoot at him, but there was what you call it? They stopped him. They didn't draw guns on the guy. You know what I mean? So like, I had a conversation with a lot of my friends, bro. And I was like, "See, bro, I told y'all, man. This whatever. I'm gonna block out the stuff on it, so I don't get hacked. But like, this right here, this don't save me. Like, it doesn't help me. You know?
Nah.
So,
bro, like, I forget the person who said it, but it's like, at the end of the day, a black man in a suit is still a black man in a suit. Exactly. You got an extra emphasis on the black. Like, just because you're nice, you're clean cut, you can have $1 trillion in your pocket, don't mean jack, because the systematic structure of the United States is bent on the oppression of
a nigga is a nigga.
The black people.
That's it. Like, a nigga is a nigga, bro. Like, they don't care, like, if you're African American, if you're Caribbean, if you're Afro-Caribbean, Afro-Latino, if you're from Africa, they don't give a fuck. Like, you a Negro. You're a Negro. Like, that's what it is. You know what I mean? And that's just reality. And
that's why there's no reconciliation to be had with capitalism. I find everybody who is right of, like, Marxist, even, well, not Marxist, anybody who is right of anarchist, even if you consider yourself a left ideology, you're not. Social democracy. Like, people say, oh, well, I don't agree with the like calling them social fascist or being the moderate side of fascism, and I'm just like, y'all do know that the Social Democratic Party of Germany held power before the Nazis took over, and then smashed the communist revolution. So instead of the Social Democrats aligning with the communists and fusing the parties,
social democracy is the tool for politicians to pacify.
Exactly, it doesn't help the
Democrat
people.
Party doing enough right now.
And even then, like, I believe social democracy will only work in like these not necessarily, but in these homogenous places like
Like the
Finland.
Nordic
Really, you can consider like the Nordic countries, Norway, Sweden. I might mess a couple of them up because they're like so close knit together.
Norway, Sweden,
Holland,
and Finland basically is them.
yeah,
Those three.
they've had. And here's the thing: where you have these social democratic nations, you've also had these massive fascist movements which seek to fuse these countries together. They're already
It's so
somewhat
bad.
fused, huh?
It's so bad there. Like
But here's the thing: people don't recognize it because they like to pass themselves off as nice. Is what I really like. I think I'm gonna write about it
that's
because
what the Nazis did too, which is kind of funny
Canada.
because the Nazis had the whole. It doesn't. I'm not saying that those are the not nations of Nazis. Obviously, you can't generalize millions of people at once, but it is interesting how these fascist movements, if you study them a lot, they frame
Oh, I do.
themselves as movements for the good of the people. They promote physical fitness. They promote
Yeah,
education, this, that, and the other, right? But in
the
doing so, they
fascists
promote that for their people, not for everybody, and that's
The
where they get
fascists
you.
even paid for mothers. Like I think it was in fascist Italy under Mussolini. They paid for the birth of children. Like they women get maternity leave, and like for each child they get like $2,500. I don't know, but it's this system they model themselves at. People forget, especially with Mussolini's stream of fascism. Um, they based themselves. Mussolini was part of the Socialist Party, but he broke off with the Italian Socialist Party because they did not support entering World War One because they were imperialists. I mean, anti-imperialist, which any sane, rational socialist party would be. So
Exactly.
when you take socialism and then you corrupt it into fascism, you're going to have a good chunk of those social policies, but you're also going to have militancy. You're going to have patriarchy. You're going to have these social constructs that are knit together so that one doesn't, break apart. You know what I mean? It
Yeah,
it
because fascism came out of like World War I too. Fascism itself is an anti-capitalist idea, but it's not anti-capitalist in the way that Marxism is. Fascism is anti-capitalist in the way that it wants a nation to protect itself from a global capitalist system. That's why you see fascists always complaining about globalism. You know what I mean? Whereas
yep,
Marxism
yep,
kind of relies on the whole point of the workers of the world uniting. So the issue with fascism is that one, it requires constant military expansion to work, whereas
definitely.
Marxism would require constant cooperation. However, but since they're both anti-capitalist and we're watching the fall of capitalism, people are radicalized to one side or the other, you know? And unfortunately,
And
we live in a country where it's a lot of white people who do feel disenfranchised, and for some reason feel like the other groups getting rights means they're losing their rights. And that fear is what drives them towards supporting fascism, either knowingly or unknowingly.
I talked to somebody about this before, and I also watched a video on this recently. It's a phenomenon. It's also tied into white flight. I will bring up a personal experience. I grew up in the hood, typical busted down buildings, few stores, few black owned stores, and it's the city very segregated. So when you have black people entering these neighborhoods because the middle class developed in the 1960s to 1970s. Black workers moved from the south to the north and to get these industrial jobs, and they built the new black middle class. And
Right.
they moved into these more affluent neighborhoods and started working, building themselves up, what Black Wall Streets and other things. Here's what happened. Lots of white people will either refuse to sell their property or just leave it all behind. So there's this giant cathedral, nice, beautiful building, just going to waste. However, in my former neighborhood, there's no windows are busted out of it, but the foundation is strong, the brick is strong. It would just need probably several $1,000s or even less just to like clean up and fix it, and it could be like a big old homeless shelter that could, or a big meal hall that could help empower the community. But when white people feel that black people are getting the same access to the rights that they have, they feel harmed. They would rather burn a piece of they would rather burn the whole cake than for black people to even get a slice of it.
That's the take I've been seeing circulating a lot on TikTok too recently that I've been talking about is when you in a state of privilege your entire life, when someone seems to be rising to the same level as you, even a little bit, it seems as if you're going downwards, you know?
Exactly.
And I think that's an issue as well, is the fact that with the removal of certain societal privileges, not the removal of some societal privileges, but the equalizing the playing field in some areas, right? White people feel as if they're losing privileges when that's not the case. You're not losing any privilege. You're just other people are gaining the same privileges that you have. But I feel like when you're in a state of privilege and everyone seems below you, when people start coming up, you start freaking out. And in that case, you go into survival mode and you want to protect what you think is your rightful place. And you start, gentrifying areas. So when black people do move into an area, you're like, no, we're going to move you out of this area and keep pushing them out, so on and so forth. And then when black people do move you out of an area, you're like, well, yeah, but we're going to do what's called the military is called area denial. You basically just say, yeah, but you're not going to take control of this area at all. Like you can be here, but you're not going to be comfortable and you're not going to be able to use it effectively.
Exactly. That's kind of like covering fire in a sense. It's like a delay tactic. Yeah, you're not necessarily in a state of winning, but as long as your enemy is on equal playing field with you or slightly, in a more disadvantageous, yeah, I butchered that word and I'm not going to fix it. But as long as they're in a lower position than you or the same position as you, then you are in some moral or virtuous sense doing better than them. It's kind of like when I don't want to single out any groups, but the Vietnamese in Cali during the 1970s, especially during the riots after MLK and Malcolm X died, they were on top of, there's photos that they showed us in Texas.
The North Koreans?
Yep.
Yeah, North Koreans.
And it's they were just trying to protect their shots. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but also, go to a Vietnamese shop. Not all of them, and hopefully not even most of them, but go to a couple.
Oh, I know. Yeah. You trying to buy something, they follow you around in the store. I'm just kind of.
Oh, the following around is the worst one, bro.
I'm just trying to buy some shit, bro. I'm not trying to steal nothing from you, man. There's a good scene. I think it's Menace to Society. I think where it's I don't know if it was intentional, but it shows the two main characters, O-Dog, and I forgot the other guy's name, and they harass the Asian owners of the store. I believe they were Chinese. I don't know their ethnicity, and he just taps one of them. You know what I mean? Just fucking domes him. And in my head, while watching the movie, it's a good. The concept of the story, it's a good story, right? But the thing is that since that movie was one of the first movies to really feature show black people living in the ghetto, you know what I mean? To perpetuate the stereotype that already we did have, that we were racist towards Asian store owners and harassed them and robbed them and attacked them. That didn't really help with our perception, especially within that community as well. Which also ties back into intersectionality as well in media. Media prevents intersectionality. Because whenever you see Stop Asian Hate, it's always a black man committing hate crime against an Asian person. You know what I mean? And our community does have an issue, especially with Asian hate.
Of course, yes.
But the way the media frames it as if black people are the main haters of Asian people. And that prevents our communities from working together. Because imagine if the black community, Asian community, if we had the economic power of the Asian community and the buying power of the black community, that'd be fucking amazing.
And the Hispanic community, bro. Once we actually fully mobilize and fully unite, we're going to be an unstoppable force. But while we are stuck in this, false, race war that the system keeps on perpetuating and trying to rile up, we're going to be at each other's necks instead of stomping on the necks of capitalists. They constantly pit us against each other. They put man against woman. They put straight against gay. They put blacks against Koreans. They put they want us in as Christians against Muslims, communists against anarchists. When once we all find that there's some fundamental thing that we can agree on and stick to it, we don't I tell leftists all the time. we do not have to agree on everything. I don't want to have to agree with everything. I want to get new perspectives.
Yeah,
But there's one thing you have to do if you're a leftist, and that means suck it up. So what you don't like that they like this certain historical figure, as long as they are not a bloody murderer who was just going into babies' homes and slicing off the heads of babies, then let them worship their little historical figure. As long as they're doing good community work and trying to actually organize the masses, which is what we need, because the masses haven't been organized and riled up in ages, man.
I mean, you and I disagree on the show all the time. You disagree on China's involvement in Africa the other day. Like, that's fine. But we both, the thing is, we both have the same end goal. You know what I mean?
At the end of the day, I want a fully unified, a strong African superpower on this planet.
Yeah.
I was looking at the East African Federation, and I see it as a tool of good. I hope it works out and everything goes good.
Doesn't get fucking cannibalized. That's what I'm worried about. Like, yeah, I'm worried for Uganda right now. Like that. That is,
it could also make
knowing that they found a gold deposit, and knowing that like fucking the Boer, whatever, the diamond company, the diamond company, the Boers, I forget their name. I just know
the blood diamonds. I think is that who you're talking about? Who the story of the blood diamonds is based off of?
Yeah, that company. Yeah, I know. I guarantee you, they're gonna try to move into Uganda. I hope Uganda nationalizes their diamond reserve, so like at least makes a nationalized company. You know,
yeah,
to keep that gold reserve, because like that could really just shift the balance of power economically. That's enough to like upend the dollar and the euro.
Well, here's the bad thing about it. Anytime an African country nationalizes their resources, they get invaded. Oh, there's a terrorist threat.
Suddenly a rebel group that pops up somewhere. Like a random rebel group will pop up. It's like,
exactly. That's why I tell people, just because they're against a neoliberal government doesn't mean, and just because a country is allied with the United States doesn't mean that that leader will not break away from the United States. So when a rebel group comes in against a figure you think is bad, that doesn't necessarily mean that rebel group is any good.
Exactly.
And I will disagree.
An example. The FARC, they claim to be Marxists, whatever, but
FARC?
They also participate in Colombia.
Yeah.
They claim to be Marxist for the people, but they also participated heavily in the cocaine trade and actively harm and terrorize the community. I think that's a good example. Like,
yeah, I don't disagree with you there. I'd have to use a lot of nuance if you want to. I was gonna say I don't think like they're these just drug peddling monsters.
Oh, no, I'm saying with that.
I'm not. I didn't. I'm just when there's a tool like the Maoists in California tried to organize gangs into they try to organize gangs into like units. However, they don't. With limited success. I think I view it in that sort of sense. Like you have these because in Colombia specifically, you had Reagan. Let's start off at Reagan because I could go back to like the United Fruit Company and the banana republics. But let's start off with Reagan because he, I think, in my mind, did some of the most damage. The Iran-Contra affair, the just drug peddling, allowing right-wing militias to peddle drugs into more specifically the black community, because where was all that coke and crack coming from? Exactly. That they were pushing it through Mexico, Honduras, all across South America, and that's how these right-wing. There lots of your biggest cartels and biggest right-wing militias are directly funded by the United States. Like,
oh yeah, no, definitely. The Mexican government's trying to sue some American gun manufacturers because they send guns over there.
Yeah. Oh man, all the time.
In Mexico right now, I'm pretty sure Remington getting sued pretty bad.
What these gun manufacturers do, actually, honestly, is openly like they lobby in the United States government, and most of the time, a sitting senator or their partner, so that they can skirt around laws, is what they do is they like Pelosi. Pelosi is one of the biggest landlords in Cali. She has like $900 million. I don't know what her and her husband's net worth is, but it's like ridiculous. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like people think that Republicans don't know what is causing mass shootings. They act like Democrats can't do anything without a majority, which is absolutely nonsense. All of these people these are not dumb people. They know, and they do these things on purpose.
They profit off of it. Is the thing.
They get money from it. They're absolutely. That's why I say, even as a communist, Bernie would have been 900. I had a discussion with a right winger about it. I said, "Oh, my problem with Bernie is that he wants free everything," which is false. But moving forward from that, Bernie's one of the only candidates ever to publicly deny and to not accept any lobbyist money. Like he was literally now he failed me. He definitely I'm not sure he failed. I don't know why he wouldn't create his own political party, because he definitely had the popularity and the support, and many people wanted him to do that. There's actually the People's Party who is still created, but definitely wanted Bernie as their figurehead. But I guess he fell in with the neoliberals, or I don't know where to go with that. But
Yeah.
as we are right now in America, especially with the whole gun issue, and I see everybody throwing their city takes around, I've literally the bro, I will let you go because I know you're more knowledgeable of guns. My problem with these shit takes are they're literally liberal takes. You're a communist, you believe in revolution, and you want guns to be taken away. Right wingers can't build guns out of penises that are cut off. Right winger.
Let me explain to you. There's a gun in the UK, I forgot what it was called, but you can build that shit with pipes from Home Depot. You can
exactly
3D print guns.
I try to tell people
that. That's what I'm saying. So I'm saying banning shit won't work, but regulating will. And we've
especially
seen
under capitalism.
We've seen this with alcohol too. If government can make money off of it, they will. Yeah, you saw it with tax. Tax stamps fucking work. Straight up, tax stamps work. I hate to say it, but they do. You see it with automatic firearms. Most people have automatic firearms now because it's fucking expensive to own one. But the thing about putting a fucking price ceiling on owning a weapon is that it takes away from the proletariat.
Yes.
The whole reason I'm pro gun obviously is arms ammunition should not be surrendered at any pretext. That's why I'm pro, and that's why I can buy my guns off of Gun Broker, and I try to buy my guns I don't buy them directly from companies. I try to buy them from local stores, stuff like that. I don't want to that's kind of how I source my guns.
Yeah, no, you're trying to be ethical about it, which I respect, and it needs to be looked into more.
Half my family's guns are unregistered. So I know gun violence don't fucking work because I fucking know handle people with unregistered guns.
I don't think that you should have said that on the podcast, but I do definitely respect. Well, you did say let them try to come here.
It's I don't. I'm on call. I don't own anything illegally, but I know plenty of people who do own stuff illegally.
Hey, don't get your family effed up, bro. You're just the pledge raid my
experience, bro. I know that the regulation itself, you know what I mean? Pure regulation isn't the answer. Not regulation.
But most people are like that.
Exactly. I hate when you bring up these other nations that the UK or Australia or whatever, because those countries don't have a gun culture like the US does. The US has a toxic fucking gun culture. You know what I mean? It's the issue isn't that we can own ARs. The issue is that anybody can own a fucking AR. That's the issue. The issue is that we don't track who has the fucking guns. We don't.
Yeah, people aren't mentally, well.
I am not against. Classes. I'm not against registry. I'm not against any of that stuff. I am against banning types of weapons and banning weapons. That's
100%. 100%. I feel as if though, because in China, who has strict gun laws, although they still have a massive amount of guns. But because their ideology is they would never, ever, ever let any type of scenario like World War II happen ever again.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
I think
definitely.
they're either tied. I think they might have lost less people than the Soviet Union did. I will have to. I think it's a comparable
They
amount.
definitely. I think they've lost almost as many. Like it was,
Yeah, yeah, almost
Japan
as
was
many,
pretty
which
fucking
is
brutal.
crazy to think because, and you know, I don't want to get too much onto the Soviet Union, but folks will say like the Soviet Union allied with Germany because they signed a defense pact, which not to mention they were the last one
It
to
was
do.
non-aggression treaty, not defense pact, which
Oh
basically
yes,
said
see,
not gonna
I even
fucking
butchered
invade.
that, but thank you.
Yeah, there's like
And plus, people don't realize the Soviet Union was this rural place, and then they had to massively industrialize.
it wasn't industrialized. Even China wasn't either. China was a fucking backwater at the time. Because
Exactly.
China, as when Britain colonized China, China slid from a world power to a fucking unindustrialized backwater. And then Japan industrialized because the U.S. forced them to with Matthew Perry and shit. You know what I
Yup.
mean? So Japan's industrialized. China has a German trained military fighting against the German aligned Japanese. The Soviet Union is trying to just expand a bit more, and they already the thing is the Soviet Union already failed when they failed in Finland in the Winter War and they got really fucking embarrassed.
Yup.
They were trying to save face with the invasion of Poland. That's what that was for. And it was also to show Germany like, hey, like we're a world power. You don't want to fucking invade us because we can do stuff militarily. Whereas the Germans already made up their mind they're going to invade the Soviet Union no matter what. You know.
Yeah,
So that's
and
so that's
Stalin. Everybody, people think that the Stalin was some sort of idiot. He knew that the Germans were going to invade. Are you guys crazy?
you
Stalin.
know
I
the
mean,
Germans are better than
must,
they're not going
mustache man.
because he lost all his fucking generals, and the Germans were like, "Bet you're fucking." Because that was one of his worst decisions was the fucking purge because he left the
Hey,
things he
hold up there. I think we've got our first disagreement in the
militarily. I'm talking about purely militarily. I'm talking like,
Okay,
from a military sense.
okay.
When you
Go
get rid of
ahead. Go on.
experienced generals, knowing that your neighbor 2 countries over is expanding fucking rapidly, it's not a good idea to get rid of your best generals because you're gonna get fucked on for 3 years like they did. You know, and I think, sorry, just to go back to China. So go back to China. The reason the Soviets are so many people is because they had a competent leadership for a long period of time. Only
I
when
don't
like the
disagree
schools
with that.
started working and the Germans started getting bogged down, they're like, okay, now we can actually reorganize and start fighting back. The thing with the Chinese is that China was in a civil war at the time Japan invaded. You know, so the national
Yep.
government was simultaneously fighting. Chiang was simultaneously fighting Bao and the Japanese at the same time, right? So the Japanese were just doing what the fuck they wanted to do because they weren't fighting a unified front. And I think that's why China had more of an issue fighting the Japanese than the Soviets had fighting the Germans because China didn't really have a
Wasn't
unified.
unified. Yep.
And that's why they lost so many people. I mean, of course, the Americans took the pressure off the Chinese in the Pacific, and
Yeah. Yeah. I'll give you that.
Soviet Union liberated like Mongolia and shit, like ended the war. Soviet Union went in like to Mongolia and like took that away from the Japanese or whatever.
If the
But
Americans
the
didn't get
thing,
the, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
sorry,
No, I'll
what were you
remember
gonna
it. Go
say?
ahead.
Yeah, the thing is just like the China didn't get the support that other that the Soviet Union did. Is also the thing. China was very much left to die. Like the Americans were there,
Oh
and the
yeah.
Americans were fighting the Japanese. So they were fighting the Japanese. The Americans were fighting the Japanese for American colonial holdings. That's what the Americans were doing. They weren't fighting the Japanese in order to help the Chinese. Although there was
Well,
like some American volunteers in China, there was like a
yeah.
volunteer
Yeah.
air squadron, stuff like that. But the government itself wasn't really keen on helping the Chinese fight the fucking Japanese. Because to them, they were all Asians, just killing other Asians. They were fine with that. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
they were fine with Japan invading Manchuria. All they did was
If
like, hey, no more
anything,
oil.
the U.S. kind of co-signed Japan to do what they did because that's why they wanted to end the war. America didn't have to go to war with Japan. Japan wanted to expand their empire.
The only reason
U.S.
Japan went to war with us is because we took the oil away. Because
Exactly.
they were getting kind of close to our islands. Who were like, hey, get the fuck away. And they were like, no. And we're like, okay, no more oil. And Japan's mindset was because America at the time, they didn't think we were going to go into a
It's
war.
so far away as well. They didn't think that
Yeah,
they were going to
they were like,
just.
okay, if we just destroy their fleet, they're not going to fight back. And they underestimated the power of the American military-industrial complex, and they fucked themselves in that aspect. But
Yeah, but it's not insane
Japan
to
just
think that this world power, which is so far away, is going to get, especially when the Europeans are fighting, they were like,
Yeah.
well, maybe we could just, cut off a couple of their islands and, just do it. And then they were just like, well,
Now the thing is, I think after they took the Philippines, that's kind of because they took the Philippines for Pearl Harbor. People forget that. So we're
yeah,
really about to go to war with the Philippines, which we should have been in the first place because we colonized them anyway. We committed genocide there, but whatever. But that's a whole other story.
that's another story.
A whole other fucking story. But basically, they took over an American colony, and Americans died, and that's when they were like, "Oh no, fuck that." That was the issue that we have with Japan. And that's when we got involved in the war. It wasn't to help China. So China didn't have that support that Europe has, even the Soviet Union, because like we were giving the Soviet Union tanks and fucking steel and spam. Like we were giving them hella shit. We weren't really supplying the Chinese that much. And that's why the Chinese suffered a lot more in the war because they just didn't have that support that USSR and Europe did.
People are going to be mad at this next point I make, and screw it. The Soviet Union is single-handedly not to say that they didn't get no help. No, I'm not saying that. The U.S. supplied massive amounts of armaments and food to the U.S. To the USSR. That being said, Britain would have been wiped off the map if not for the Soviet Union.
No historian would disagree with you on that.
Like the entire Western Europe, like literally owes the Soviet Union a thank you for being able to speak their home language.
It's actually funny. They had to force the West to open up a new front, actually. So,
they threatened to drop off out of the war. Like they were gonna make like you know how they did during World War I with Britain and France.
I think it was Tehran conference. I think Stalin was like, "Hey, if you guys open a new front, I'm just gonna make peace with Hitler." Because at that point, Stalin was on their own. They were just like, "We can make peace with the Nazis and let them take over Europe, and we'll be straight." And that's when the Americans were like, "Ah, shit, we actually gotta like open up a new front." You know what I mean?
Yeah, they could have gave Hitler Ukraine. That's really what Hitler wanted. Now he was planning on exterminating the whole of the Soviet Union, but specifically, he was going to cut off. And that kind of ties into today with what Ukraine and Russia are going into as well, because they're funding.
All it is. Yeah. Oil and grain. Oil and grain. That's literally what it is.
Well, grain and food, like they are the bread basket of the world, bread basket of Europe.
The fucking golden Ukraine's flag was literally for all the fucking wheat in the country. That's what the yellow is for. Is the wheat. So
and the black and red on like the fascist flags stand for blood and soil. They people often forget that they were planning on depopulating the entirety of Ukraine and replacing it with Germany. They wanted
they wanted That's what they
exactly.
Wanted,
if you're thinking about comparing Soviet Union with Nazis, let me just give you one example out of many. When the split of Poland happened, so only the Soviets only killed about 150,000 Poles. Meanwhile, the Nazis killed about 1.5 million Poles. That's about like 12. I don't feel like doing the math. But $150,000. Would you rather lose $150,000 or $1.5 million?
I wasn't either, but I get what you're saying.
Exactly. You know what I mean? War is war, and you're telling me that, like, and not to mention, Poland really, is was also a fascist power at this time. They say Podolsky, who was the president at that time, was a democratic socialist, but people often forget that socialists often fall into fascism.
Most of Europe was fascist at the time. It was just like
exactly
because even Spain was fascist at the time. You know what I mean? It was just like a thing, especially for countries that didn't really benefit from World War One. You know what I mean? Like Japan. That's why Japan became fascist. Japan was mad about World War One because they helped the Allies and they didn't really get anything for helping the Allies. So they got pissed off and became fascist. And of course Germany got pissed off because of the massive inflation and the fucking not sanctions, reparations they had to pay. It was just kind of like the trend in Europe at the time. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
whenever Europe tends to go fascist whenever there's economic downturn like there is now, especially like places like Greece and Poland, even now again Poland, you know what I mean?
Oh,
And so
definitely. Even now, again,
and
Poland.
Eastern
Here's the thing: there was a
Europe.
huge. Here's one of Stalin's biggest mistakes. He didn't support the Greece liberation movement,
He
and
did it. Yeah.
that literally makes me frustrated because if you here you are trying to make communism in places where like they are resistant to it, and you have like in Greece where they predominantly liberated themselves, have massive communist movements, and you know the only reason why the Greece Communist Party to this day is still strong, but it's just not as strong as it once was. If they even had an ounce of support from the Soviet Union, then Greece would be communist right now.
To be fair, the USSR was in the same position the US and the UK were. US
Yeah,
and UK could just
you're
go
right.
where the fuck they wanted to, and they had the resources to do so. USSR was fighting a defensive war for most of the
You're
world.
right. You're right. I
And there's
will
also
give you
that.
that.
So it's also that the US and the UK were able to extend their influence. Like UK was able to extend influence in Arabia through supporting those movements there. Because that's just kind of what they was doing, you know what I mean? The USSR didn't really have the resources to do so. I think that's also leads to like how the West gained dominance throughout World War II, is that the West used the fact that a lot of nations were subjugated, especially the US and the UK specifically. They used that fact and used the fact that they could support them to get them on their side. You know what I mean? So those nations, in a way, feel indebted to these countries, you know, because they believe that these countries help them. Objectively, these countries, they wouldn't be free without like supporting these countries. Yes, because it's kind of hard to fight insurgency, but without outside support. You know what I mean? But like, had the support come from the USSR, you know what I mean? They'd be indebted to that country. They'd be indebted to them. But because the USSR wasn't in a position to do so, they could really only affect the nations that were near their borders. And I think that was a limiting factor for them. And that was a limiting factor for the rise of communism as well. That's what led to like the East-West split. I think that's the reason the East-West split was there, just like geographic and the limitations of what the USSR could and couldn't do.
And culture, I'd say culture-wise. Even though Germany and Poland are two of those countries which are like teeter-totter on West-East, like Poland definitely was considered as Eastern, yet, you know, such enough Western PP to be considered Western. Even though they're considered
Germany and Poland are considered Western, East, Central Europe now, but like Germany nowadays is considered in the West. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely considered West. Even though just a couple, you know, get put you back like even a little bit less than 100 years ago. Those crops. Is that still considered?
No, 100, like fucking 70. 70 years ago, there were crowds.
Exactly. They were these like, you know, they even like. I don't get how the Europes have so much racism in their heart to the point where they are racist.
The Balkans. Oh
my God, bro! We're talking about the Balkans. Let me get my joint.
So my dad went to Kosovo during like when all that shit was going down. You know what I mean? So he was there trying with the whole Kosovo bullshit.
You said your father was there?
Yeah, my dad was with the U.S. peacekeeping mission, like Army. And what my dad was talking about was like he was like astounded about like how they were just killing each other. He was like, he thought he was crazy because like a lot of times they couldn't really intervene because of like international law and shit. So they had to just like watch shit happen sometimes.
And it was horrible.
And they were like, y'all look the same. Like, what the fuck are y'all doing? You know? Because he's a black man from America. Like, he's discriminated against because he looks different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's like watching these groups kill each other because like they don't even fucking look different. They just like have slight differences in like what they do. You know what I mean? And for him, because like. I think the difference in European racism and American racism is that American racism is very phenotypical. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Whereas in like it's based on like how you look, like because you have white passing black people we don't get discriminated as much against, and that's where the whole blood quantum came from with Native Americans.
Yeah.
Whereas in Europe, the discrimination is more ethnic. You know, it's like look at the UK and Ireland as well. Like that's ethnic discrimination, not racial discrimination.
Yeah.
And
No,
I think
that's
also a big difference as well. And I think that's also why Europeans don't really have a good grasp of racism in America and how that works there, because to them it's just kind of like the Europeans they're like, well, you all Americans, you know, so why are you racist to each other? Whereas like in Europe it's like, oh, I'm from fucking insert region of Spain, you're from insert region of Spain, fuck you. You know what I mean? That's a big thing. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know where I was going. If I was going to go into Europeans, I would say what the fuck racism is, but that's another topic for another day because. Fucking Europeans. Europe is racist, but I'm not even cap, bro. I have more racist experiences in Europe than I had in my entire life in America. Like, I'm not even fucking joking. It's that fucking bad there. Like, my least racist visit was to Berlin, and I saw a neo-Nazi rally there. Like, that's what Europe is.
Yeah, no, I hate how Europeans are like, yeah, we virtually eliminated racism, and I'm just like,
No, you have ethno states. You don't fucking
no,
allow
like the way that they treat Muslims is the way that black people are treated here. Like, oh my god,
You know, the black people, just because like those are the immigrants most in Europe, so they treat them like the way we treat Latinos, just immigration wise. And they like to support them. They like to fuck with their culture. You know what I mean? Like, especially France. You know what I mean? Banning the hijab and shit. Like that shit right there. Like it's fucked up. You know?
Yeah, I sympathize with Russians in this regard. Like, people like are just like, well, Russians are white, so blah blah blah. And I also heard, like, I hate when I hear like a black leftist say, "I'm not gonna read an ideology by old racist dead men," and I'm just like, excuse me. Around the time when they wrote these ideologies, they were not considered white, and even still to this day aren't. Like, a newscaster got on public television, it's received over millions of views, saying how different Eastern Europe, and she was like talking about it like it's a history lesson. But Eastern Europeans are more violent and aggressive and really don't care about violence. And
no, literally, that's a stereotype. That stereotype of Eastern European is motherfucking a tracksuit with an AK smoking a cigarette. That's the stereotype. You know what I mean?
But here's the thing: Western Europe is built on militancy. It is literally built on exterminating entire cultures. They can't go 1 century without committing a genocide.
So my major at West Point is military history, right?
Right.
Guess what majority of the military theory I studied came from? Guess what majority of that theory came from?
Where?
Western Europe. Because they fucking perfected warfare.
And they really have. They have.
So like, the only goddamn theory I studied that had to do with warfare was from fucking Western Europe because they did that shit the most. And it's so funny how they project it onto other places they colonize. They go, oh, these violent savages. They're fucking violent because you're taking their fucking land. That's why they are violent. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, they would not be violent. They would not be violent. They would not be violent societies. They would not be warring societies that are constantly trying to fight people. Well, not really fight people, fight the fucking oppressors if you were fucking oppressive. You know what I mean? Like, that's a big issue with Europeans is even with Americans, they see themselves as superior to everybody still to this day. And I think there's also a bit of imperial jealousy. Like, that's a term I just fucking made up. Imperial jealousy. But Eastern European, I think Western Europeans also are jealous to a degree of the American Empire. You know what I mean? And
they definitely feel as if though, and they also feel connected to it, which is why.
So whenever they see like America fail, like yes, America's like failing. You know, like we're not second fiddle anymore. Like it's not that at all. You know what I mean?
And right now, it's kind of like Germany and France vying for like control over the European Union. France has the military and the own culture like strength, while Germany has the economic and cultural strength. So while France was very independent and like even cut themselves off from the EU at one point, like France and Germany are way stronger than the UK. The UK has been getting by and just like,
the UK has been playing second fiddle to the US ever since fucking
World War One.
Ever since Desert Storm, the UK has been second fiddle to the US militarily at least. Even from a military standpoint.
I was going to say since World War One, you're giving them a lot of credit. Their empire crumbled long ago.
I'd say North Africa. I'd say from the North African campaign in World War II. I believe that's what you.
Okay, I can give you that. Even like
say that just because like it took a while for the empire to fade, and of course they had that one success in the Falklands, and they still ride that shit to this day. They ride the fucking Falklands because that's like their one major military success since World War II.
I wouldn't even give them that because, like, you're fighting a country who literally barely just won its independence and has been fighting with other countries. Like,
they did not have the economic. Argentina at the time had a fascist government. It's just fucking ironic because Argentina at the time was under a dictator, and the dictator only started the fucking war to win the war against the UK, and they didn't realize that they were fighting a dying imperial power. But that's
here's the thing. But here's the thing about South American fascists. most of them were put there. Like, people always think that the West is always on one front. No, they're all capitalists vying for supremacy. So eventually, they will all start to fight one another. They only
Exactly.
ally one with one another when there's a bigger fish to fry. The
Like
Soviet Union
Granada.
was that bigger fish to fry. That's what was uniting them. And China and Russia, if or when Russia goes through another socialist revolution,
It's
that
definitely
will
a fucking thing.
probably be your start of not necessarily World War III, but a large, massive conflict. It,
I wouldn't say military. I'd say another Cold War. I feel like that
yeah,
because
okay, yeah,
I feel
you will
like
see it.
US and China, like, they're not going to go to war. Like as much as people talk shit about it, it's not going to happen. Just because a war would not be good for either country. I think that's kind of like a don't want to say good, but I think the only like maybe one positive about it like global capitalism is just that since the economies are so interconnected now, it's really hard for like large nations to go to convention war against each other.
I'd
Just
give you
because
that.
that doesn't leave any winners around. You know what I mean? I think that's like one like the only like positive of global capitalism is that like it prevents major conventional wars between major powers, like say a war between India and China, or a war between the U.S. and China. Like that doesn't
A
happen because
little.
of capital. A
India and
little.
China have been having their small border conflicts. I
But
think
what's
you
funny about
just.
that? They can't have guns there, so they have like fucking
Oh
state
yeah,
guns
they have
because
fist and knife fights, bro.
they
They like
fucking beat
they.
each other to death there because like they were like, if we have
There
guns,
were
it's gonna solve.
26 deaths though. Like on each side, there they had around 20
Yeah, it's
deaths, and
bad.
I'm just like,
It's
these
really
folks
fucking bad.
really just beat each other. They must have gotten a little bit into their Rust cosplay because oh my god, they were trying to play
I've
mind.
watched videos of it. They legit just like fucking have shields and shit just running at each other. But I'm just like, the fuck? I'm just kind of like, what the fuck is going on there? It's so weird.
They,
Like,
they,
I didn't
they,
really understand what was going on, and so I had to look it up. But it was interesting to say the least.
it's so that they don't have a larger
Sure.
conflict because
I know what it is.
both
People
of
are
these
trying to get,
countries are fiercely nationalistic. Um,
especially
like
India now.
yeah. Oh, India. I say like, and I'm biased because I am a communist, but India is way more national. It's borderline fascist. Modi. People always think like Buddhists are these nice people, and for the most part they are. But not only the class issue, and the
You're talking about Hinduism, not Buddhism. Hinduism in
oh yeah.
India.
You know what? I'm wrong.
Yeah,
My bad. Although
yeah,
I do
how they
think there
genocide the
is
Muslim
this.
population and push them into Pakistan. Come on, yeah, because India fucking genocide Muslims, pushing motherfuckers into Pakistan.
Oh my
Like
God. Pakistan
that's
has its own
exactly.
issues as well. Pakistan is innocent, but they definitely that
Pakistan is
when
not innocent. I just see videos of kids talking about I want to grow up and destroy India. Like that is a different level of
it's
indoctrination.
horrifying because you have to realize what those kids were put through to have this idea of India that they want to burn down. Like folks will talk about, oh, the Pakistan, the Muslims are trying to burn down India. Isn't that because you totally destroyed both sides of the parental lineages? They don't have any uncles or aunts. All of their cousins have been hung from trees. Their fishing, like their watering holes, have been glassed. Their villages burned to the ground. Like you can't say India likes to project itself as a middle power. It likes to
It's not a
project
middle
itself
class.
as a developing country, but it's far from it. It's not. It's not rich. It's not like the U.S. But by God, it's not this small, weak country. They just had some
India
of the
is not weak,
massive.
but it's just that India doesn't get involved in shit. So like they don't
Right, they're part of
really
that.
like.
What's it called? The non-alignment movement. They
Yeah, so like
political side of things. They just
yeah,
don't
like
get
like when
involved.
Russian oil got really cheap, India bought that shit because they were like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna buy Russian oil." And like India takes equipment from China, not China, but like Russia and the U.S. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
I guess I'm going for military angle again because that's all I fucking know. India's military, like the issue that they got is that like since India refuses to like take a side, they have so much like a mix of like Western and Russian equipment that it makes it hard for the motherfuckers to operate
People
because
think
like they
that
don't, they
India
don't have to.
like beefs with China based on communism. That's not it. Although it is a problem, the ideological differences. The main reason that they beef is like cultural. Like they
It's
literally
old. It's too
cannot
fucking
forgive
deep.
China for taking over. What is it? What is that place? Tibet? Yeah, they will not let that go at
Yeah,
all.
no, I mean, China did kind of commit genocide there, though.
When
There was a whole ethnic replacement thing that happened in Tibet. That was a whole issue, but
I will
it's also that.
I will say China has not been perfect on human rights all the time. I'm not going to deny that. I will say that there was like people are going to be like, "Oh, does the CIA do everything?" Yes, yes, the CIA does everything. The CIA,
Yeah, no,
from Tiananmen Square to Tibet, literally all those ethnic rebel fighters. Like if you have a rebel group based on an ethnicity, not I give you like a 6 out of 10% chance the CIA has their hand in it somehow, some
or
way.
MI6, or
Huh?
MI6, or the French Secret
MI6,
Service.
yep, that's British intelligence.
MI6
Mossad,
low
which
key
is
be what the
Israeli
CIA do.
intelligence.
Mossad.
Mossad, yes. All of your
Mossad, but Mossad's more like Middle East. Like Mossad more just
yeah, no,
assassins
no.
motherfuckers.
I'm just saying, but they often collaborate, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like
Israeli
it's more like
cybersecurity is some of the best in the world too.
it's how it kind of works. It's more like the British get the intelligence, and the CIA will fucking pay a militia to go start a war.
Yep.
And the Israelis, they'll just go fucking kill you themselves. They'll be like, fuck it. Like
Yeah.
they're just Israelis. They'll just kill Iranian generals in the street and then fucking dip out. Like that's how they operate.
Yep. Yep.
But
No,
like to a
most
degree,
definitely.
no, I mean to a degree, it's more. I guess not honorable, but to a degree, it makes more sense to just like fucking instead of like starting like a random motherfucking proxy war, just like, yo, fuck, we're just gonna shoot this guy and dip out.
The proxies wars. Here's the thing: Israelis do it themselves because they're closer in proximity. They're trying to take out
They can't afford
Iran,
that capacity. They
and
can't.
they
They don't have
really
money for that.
what they want to do is to develop. I mean, to make sure no significant Arab power comes to light. They will stop any attempt like Egypt. Egypt was one of the strongest. Not only was it under Nasser one of the strongest powers, they beat back. Like yes, the UK won, but the Soviet Union and America pressured the UK and I think France to like they were like, you know what,
We're gonna
hand
have to canal, yeah.
Egypt.
That's like so funny. It's like imagine like fucking up that bad when you got the USSR saying, "Yo, chill the fuck out." You got like
They're
two
just like you
European-
cannot take over countries just because they nationalize their resources.
Yeah, even when the US is like, bro, no,
Yes,
that's
the
ain't right.
U.S. has to tell you to chill out. You know you do it so wrong.
I mean, when the US is like, bro, this shit ain't cool. You gotta like stop and be like, what the fuck? Like the Falklands, the US is like, yo, what the fuck you doing? Bro? You just going to work? These guys are like, yep. I'm like, okay.
Be like, where do
Island?
you? The Brits are like, where do you think you learned it from? The only reason why Brits are mad at the U.S. for being imperialist is because they don't have an empire anymore.
No, so I remember when the French were really pissed about us going to Iraq in '03. Like they were like making a fucking shit show in the UN. They were like,
A lot of
America's
countries
back.
were.
But as France, how many motherfucking African countries they have troops in is, you think America's troop presence in France is massive? Look at the fucking Portuguese and French troop presence in
Trust
Africa.
me,
It is insane. And Portugal is low-key an underrated imperial power because they be doing shit. They be doing shit in Africa just under the guise of the UN. But Portugal be running hella missions in Africa too.
The
France,
U.S. is
like-
an imperial NATO. That's why. Look, I don't support Russia, or it's critical support. It's more so. Yes, I recognize Russia is imperialist. Well, the definition of imperialism.
Like Vietnamese,
Say it again.
Ukrainian, Palestinian. If someone from another country in a different uniform is like on your soil, you got the right to fucking shoot them. That's my personal opinion. Dead ass. Like I don't support Azov. Fuck Azov. Fuck
No,
those guys.
I don't think you did at all. No.
Yeah, no. I'm just like my mindset, especially like because I take after a lot after Black Panthers. Like that's why more or less my mindset is. So my mindset is always like community defense first. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
So my mindset is like, if someone's like going into your fucking country, like you have the right to fucking cap them if you fucking want to. Like that's just kind of how I view stuff.
Now this is going to
Especially
come
when-
off very red fascist right now. I'm not going to even lie. Ukraine, to some extent, man, I'm gonna sound like a Russian, but doesn't like Lenin created Ukraine. You know that. Like Lenin, like there was no Ukraine before. Like they that whole area, Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine are known as the Three Sisters because they've been united for so long. And even when like people look between their DNA and their languages, like their languages are mutually intelligible to the point where if you like meet, if a Russian and Ukrainian man have never met before, have never met
Yeah.
like an opposing country person, they would still be able to understand each other to some point
I wouldn't
because
say that
they,
was. I wouldn't say that was like voluntary though, because back in the day, that was more just the czars forcing them to cooperate. The czars were pretty brutal to the Ukrainians,
I will give you
so
that, but no,
there
no,
is a bit of that there.
no,
Because the
they
fuck,
definitely all Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus are descended from the Vikings. I use that term loosely, but they're descended
yeah,
from
you
the
can't. No one can't be
Swedes
your situation. Yeah,
who came over there. So they're all from those that same ethnic group, that same migration group that came through, and
yeah.
they have a shared culture. Not to say that Ukraine can't and shouldn't be independent, but the reason why the war broke out between Russia and Ukraine isn't because Russia wants all of Ukraine's resources. Russia before this, like they had several peace treaties. This war started in 2014, and it's really due to the U.S. funding. Like Ukraine had they'll say it's a pro-Russian president, but it was really a neutral president who organized. They accepted trade agreements with the West, and they accepted trade agreements with Russia. 2014 comes. Russia.
Oh yeah, I'm talking about Crimea. Yeah,
Hmm?
because there was the whole thing with the oil and what you call it. Basically, EU was kind of worried about because the situation now the EU is kind of struggling with Russian oil. So the EU was kind of worried about relying on Russian oil. So they was trying to like make a situation where through the newly independent the newly independent states from the Soviet Union. I mean, they was trying to like run pipelines through there, so they wouldn't have to depend on Russian oil as much.
But
So when Ukraine gets in a situation where they're more amicable, let's say, to the West, they're going to try to exploit that to the best ability. That's kind of what's going on. You know what I mean? So from a Russian standpoint, the thing is that would also fuck Russia's economy to shit because Russia's a petro state. Believe it or not, like they're as much of a petro state as Iraq was. Like they're just not really talked about as much.
I could disagree on that one.
40% of Russia's GDP comes from oil. So for Russia, it's like if we lose like this pipeline, if we lose like this oil line, we're fucked. You know what I mean? So for them, they see it as the West is trying to cut off their economy and try to skirt around them a little bit more. You know what I mean? So for them, it's like taking Crimea was important just because at first off, you need that port as well for shipping. That was also important for them because Russia doesn't have any more ports at all. And when they take Crimea, it's kind of like reminiscent of what they did in Georgia to a degree, just in the Donbass region at least.
Here's my thing with the Georgia Ukraine thing. You have to see like you don't just magically put soldiers in Ukraine. Like people forget that Russia was one of the strongest nation within the Soviet Union, and not to mention that the Soviet Union was,
in the Soviet Union.
huh?
It was the strongest nation.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm
right.
saying. That usually
Yeah.
I say either the or one of just to cover my ass when I'm talking. But most of the military equipment was still within Russia, and even during like people will say, well, Russia forced them to call themselves Russian. People who are like Muslim in Chechnya even still call themselves Russian because it's like it's less of it's less of an ethnic thing, more of a culture thing. You know,
National. I say national than culture.
yeah, okay,
That's
yeah,
more
I
of
can give you
yeah,
that.
more,
I
more
can
of
give
a
you that.
national identity type thing.
So when Crimea was taken over by the Russians, how many do you think? Because I have my own preconceived notion from like reading and studying and even talking to Russians in Russians and Ukrainians, and Crimea under Ukrainian control. Not to mention, before this whole Russia-Ukrainian thing was going on, every Western country was calling Zelensky one of the most corrupt politicians in Europe, saying how Ukraine is, borderline fascist. Ukraine literally just banned like 10 opposition parties just because they are quote unquote pro-Russian.
Yeah.
And I know you don't support the government, you support the people. But the people clear in Crimea, at least, like the admiral, you can't just pull off something like this magically. Oh, when over 90%, I have to you folks. I encourage everybody to look up what I say of their own. Like, don't just believe me. Look it up. Please look it up. Go through hundreds of different sources to look it up. But there was not much of a fight for Crimea. The ethnic Russians, like that happened overnight. The admiral of the Navy switched over to the Russians and is still in charge there. The Air Force, everybody just switched overnight to them. And what's going on in the Donbass, I'm just like, you don't just magic up 30,000 troops in one city and 40,000 troops in another who are part of that own city. You don't just magic that up. It's kind of like when people are saying, "Oh, well, Russia, forced those people." That's kind of like when Republicans say everybody is a crisis actor, or everybody is pretending. People think that like Ukraine and Russia are like truly, just these different places, and that Russia wants.
They're not. They're very similar countries. It is a brother war. When Russian soldiers were in Ukraine to get a shot out, they're like, "Yo, why are you shooting at us like we're friends?" You know what I mean? That's also the thing. Putin really took advantage of the fact that
he's a nationalist at the end of the day. He's right wing.
That's really fucked up. It's like the U.S. go to war with Canada. That's the comparison people make because it is. It's like if we invaded Canada. It's the same concept. Because we're very similar nations, and they're very similar nations. They culture-wise and people-wise have the same demographics.
I'd have to disagree with you on that one. I could
give you like if the U.S. invaded Canada, they'd be confused as to why they're invading Canada. That's why the Russian soldiers were confused. Well, the conscripts were confused as to why they're invading Ukraine. Like that concept.
I could give you that. I just mean as far as the shared cultures thing. Like, yeah, you could give the British perspective, but like not only to mention the massive disparity between ethnic groups and like the similar geographic areas, that sort of culture. Because Zelensky, in a plea to Putin, said, my grandfather fought in World War II. My grandfather was part of the Red Army. I am no fascist. I just want, But listen to Zelensky speak. Listen to his speeches and how he talks about the fierce national pride of Ukraine and how, he will not surrender an inch and how he's always asking for weapons. He folks
begging for more weapons.
Like Russia, really,
yo, you gotta stop.
Russia didn't even want.
They outgunned Russia, and they still want more shit. You know what I mean? That's what I find a little bit suspicious because at this point, Russia's kind of out of ammo now. At this point, you know what I mean? They don't have enough microchip for missiles. They're running out of fucking artillery shells, and Ukraine is still begging for ammunition. And the news is still pushing this narrative that Ukraine needs more weapons. Ukraine has more weapons they can fucking use right now. Ukraine can use half the weapons they fucking have because the Western weapons are out of fucking use them.
Well, the West is actually running out of weapons. I think they gave like over 1/3 of the amount of their usable stock. The thing with Ukraine,
yeah, there is. I'm saying, but it seems like Zelensky is using this war as a way to build up Ukraine's military strength, not just for the war, but just for it in general. That's what I was going to get into because they have more shit than they need right now.
Folks did say, I've heard this perspective that after the war ends between Russia and Ukraine, the fascists will somewhat take over. And I could see where folks are coming from that. Like when Germans lost the world, then they had the Nazis who took over. But I will offer the opposite perspective where, because I've seen the photos, Telegram, YouTube, different various, messaging sites where like you could communicate with people all across the world, and it's very telling when you have you create like they're trying to make it seem like they're Ukrainian civilians like support Zelensky and want everybody, like Ukraine is solidified against Russia when it's very, not so much the truth. When Russian troops come into a city, the Russians do not brutalize, the Ukrainians as they try to portray on the TV. These genocides that they try to portray, like it's not like in like how we were talking about the Balkans. It's of course there's rivalries, there's different ideologies, there's different cultures starting to develop.
One second, real quick. Someone's calling real quick.
Of course.
Yeah, this is he. Hi. Okay. Sure. Actually, no, I can't right now. I can't merge call right now. No. Can't.
Wait,
Sure. Yeah. Right. My Dasher's app stopped working.
his app stopped working?
Yes.
What app?
The DoorDash app to get to West Point.
Oh, wow.
Hello?
Typical.
Yeah, this is you. Oh, you're at West Point? Okay. Okay. My app didn't show you here. Okay, I'll go meet you right now. All right, thank you. All right, comrade, I have to go, but I do appreciate this talk. I
Of
think it was
course,
very
of course.
productive.
And I'm glad that,
Always welcome to dialogue.
always open for more dialogue and, sharing perspectives.
All right, comrade. You have a great night, comrade. I
All
appreciate
right.
you.
All right. Be blessed, brother.
You too as well.
All righty. I think we're going to call it a night, y'all. Had a very nice talk with LJ. We were supposed to have some more people on. Comrade McCullough and Val were supposed to pop up, but and I might restart it, so I might end up fusing two of these videos together. But for right now, I have all of my content, and I'm just I got to figure out an outro because it's just me sharing my little rambling thoughts. Not unless y'all like that. I don't know. We'll see as I drop more content. But yeah, this was a lovely chat, and I hope to see some comments dropped and some productive, criticisms, because I learn from right wingers and left wingers at the end of the day. So if you have any thoughts, questions, concerns, anything y'all want to talk about, just drop a comment, no matter how long, because I will read it. And I will respond, whether in video or in a comment. Thank you very much. I am on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TikTok, and Twitter. You can find me under the user Blazing Black Bolshevik. That's kind of my thing right now. So, or Tracy Jones. I will let y'all know in the future and drop more. Drop the links. Peace, love, and bread. Love y'all.